Things don't always go according to plan, especially when the time is running low. But in the chaos of last-ditch fights, the best teams are still able to make implausible plays. When the Paris Eternal faced off against the Philadelphia Fusion for the third time this season, once Paris got to Route 66, they were just one map away from extending this series to a map 5. The Eternals' defense went pretty decently, as they were able to prevent a full cap of the map from the Fusion. But on the Eternals' Point A attack, they failed several times to get the upper hand. After being chased back to spawn with just a minute left on the clock, somebody on Paris had to create an opening for the team to gain some footing. Enter the 200 ping, fresh face to the Overwatch League, Fielder. While EQO is chasing down the Eternal and looking for additional kills to stagger out the attacking team, Fielder hits a long-range sleep dart onto the unsuspecting enemy Echo player. Now one of the primary carries of Philly is vulnerable, and despite the best efforts of Fury with his experimental barrier and Boombox with his immortality field, the rest of the Fusion is just a hair too late to save EQO. Now it's a 5 vs 6 situation, and the Paris Eternal can push in with confidence. But all was not yet won for Paris. Philly's high ground position, alongside their difficult to dive composition, presented its own set of challenges. The moment that the Eternal push in and engage with FD God's rally, they send 3 members up onto the high ground to contest the Fusion. But No Smite is knocked away by Alarm's whip shot, Nico is forced back by significant poke, and Hanbin is left to take the brunt of the damage output from the Fusion. Bob was even thrown onto the top of the gas station by Hisu, making it even more difficult to get onto Fusion's composition. The Eternal, despite being a player up, are forced to concede the high ground and stack on the objective, where they have both cover and the rally armor to minimize risk. Fury, seeing the enemy team grouped together, knows that it's the optimal time to attempt to get value out of his gravitic flux and propels himself into the air while ulting the payload. Most of the Eternal are able to avoid this as they press forward into the lines of the Fusion, but Fury nabs 2 vital targets, Fielder and FD God, the Paris support line. Thankfully for Paris, not all is lost, as with the additional armor provided by the rally, both supports avoid critical damage, and FD God is actually able to use his suspension in the air to displace Bob even further and make the Ashe ult all but a non-factor in the fight. Nico, being clever, even uses his duplicate on Alarm, copying the abilities of Brigitte, and makes it so that should the worst happen to Fielder and FD God as part of the gravitic flux, the Eternal would still have some form of healing. This pseudo whiff from Philly enables the Eternal to push forward and force out several defensive cooldowns from the defenders, including Sato's Fortify and his protective barrier. Once the Orisa is vulnerable, Paris attempt to get their next elimination in the fight and collapse on the enemy main tank. But although they are able to remove Sato from the fight, EQO has returned off respawn and trades the elimination 1-for-1 onto Hanbin. Seeing an opening but lacking the cooldowns, EQO duplicates the enemy Winston and decides to fill the shoes of the main tank the Fusion have lost. With Winston duplicated, EQO can jump forward and isolate the Eternal backline from the rest of their team. Winston certainly pumps out more damage than either Ana or Brigitte, and with the health of his duplicate essentially providing a shield, he's not afraid to take the 1v2 and give the rest of his team the advantage. However, with the rally armor still on Fielder and the natural armor of Brigitte, Winston's Tesla cannon alone isn't enough to finish off the Paris supports. EQO knows that to take these 2 down, he's going to have to use the primal rage afforded to him by the exceedingly quick ult charge of the Echo duplicate. But Fielder and Nico are prepared, and by the time EQO gets his primal and goes for the ideal target of the enemy Ana, Fielder has completely disengaged around the side of the gas station. Thus, EQO refocuses his efforts onto the Brigitte still easily available to him. Unfortunately for EQO, Fielder isn't done with him quite yet, and the moment EQO leaves the protective shielding of his barrier, Fielder lands yet another sleep dart, disabling the enemy Echo for the remainder of the duplicate. Meanwhile, No Smite and the rest of the Paris Eternal haven't been sitting idle. While Soon takes a 1v1 with Hisu toward the back of the point, Nico pushes forward alongside No Smite and provides his main tank enough healing to sustain for an aggressive 2v3 despite the isolation of Fielder and FD God. Aggressive enough even to where Boombox panics just a bit and stacks the defensive cooldowns of the immortality field and the regenerative burst on top of each other suboptimally. Soon does end up losing the fight against Hisu due to an impressive headshot, but Alarm and Boombox are forced into a tiny corridor with No Smite on top of them, and without those critical cooldowns, both of the Fusion's healers are eliminated. Although the remainder of this fight is tenuous at best for Paris as it devolves into a respawn brawl, eventually the Eternal are able to stabilize. With the enemy team staggering in, and Fielder hitting a third sleep dart onto EQO in a single fight, the Paris Eternal finish taking point A and complete the map to extend the series and give themselves a chance at the reverse sweep.